Does Jon Jones not want to fight, or does Jon Jones just not want to fight Tom Aspinall?
Listen, Jon Jones has been an interesting human being to deal with since the day he got here. But I will say this about him. You would never hear me out, talking about he's the GOAT and he's the this and he's the that if Jon Jones didn't want to fight people. Jon Jones has never, ever said, I'm afraid to fight this guy, or I don't like this fight for me, or any of that stuff.
Dana White is prepared to dethrone Jon Jones and proclaim a new heavyweight king if the champ continues to avoid Tom Aspinall.
For instance, he doesn't fight this guy. Who would you like to see him fight? Or are you going to wait until he fights this guy?
I don't know. We'll see how this thing plays out over the next couple weeks. But yeah, if we can't get this fight done, we'll move on quickly.
Dana has made it plain that if a heavyweight title unification bout between Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall does not come together quickly, the UFC is prepared to move without it. With a deadline in place, White highlighted that supporters would not have to wait much longer for replies. The UFC CEO noted that either the highly awaited fight is settled within a few weeks, or the company adjusts gears and goes forward with other plans. This strong remark sends a clear message: the time to wait for Jon Jones is running out.
Obviously, this Jon Jones thing is what a lot of people are talking about. I wonder, is there anything that PFL or Francis could do to make that a realistic option for you guys, or are you fully focused on Aspinall?
Yeah, it's Aspinall's fight. I mean, we've been talking to this kid forever about it, and it's his fight. Listen, you can't make people fight. If Jon doesn't want to fight, you can't make him fight. We can try to make him fight. We can throw things at him that inspire him to want to fight, but we'll figure it out.
White has stated that dealing with Jones throughout the years has not been easy. Describing him as an unusual person, the UFC head did, however, defend Jones from allegations that he is evading a fight. Jones, according to White, has never displayed fear or declined a match because he was worried about his odds. He mentioned the one time in 2012 when Jones' coach encouraged him not to accept a late-notice replacement fight against Chael Sonnen, which ended in the cancellation of UFC 151, but emphasized that the choice was not based on fear. White says that Jones has constantly consented to fight whomever the UFC has given him, and that fear has never entered his mind.
That's the beauty of this. That's the beauty of what we do. How will Topuria do at 55? And the thing is, here you get thrown right to the wolves. You're going in against Charles Oliveira, one of the best, one of the most popular fighters in the UFC. I don't know the answer to that question, but we're going to find out.
Concerns remain about why the Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall fight has not been scheduled. Jones last fought inside the octagon in November, defeating former two-time champion Stipe Miocic in a strong performance at UFC 309. Since then, he's allegedly been in Thailand working on a Russian version of The Ultimate Fighter, and speculation has increased that the delay in announcing his next fight is due to financial constraints or retirement negotiations rather than scheduling issues. In contrast, Tom Aspinall has stayed active and committed to the heavyweight category. In July 2024, he successfully defended his interim title by finishing Curtis Blades in less than a minute, a rarity in interim belt defenses. Before that, he beat Sergey Pavlovich in November 2023 to become the interim champion. Now, the Wigan local is more than ready to fight for uncontested gold, and the fans are demanding it. A petition requesting the UFC to remove Jones of his title has nearly 100,000 signatures, showing the amount of dissatisfaction with the continuous delays.
You see the petition online from the fans?
Every human on earth was DMing it to me, and yeah, I saw it.
Just curious what you make of that.
How many fans are there worldwide? It's like 400 million, 130,000 people want to see him strip. It's kind of silly.
He said he doesn't care if you strip it, but he would vacate it.
I've been busy. I haven't been keeping up with the gossip.
Interestingly, Jones hasn't expressed much enthusiasm for facing Aspinall, despite White's insistence that the champion had initially agreed to the fight. That arrangement, however, has not yet resulted in a written contract or announcement. Aspinall has been training and planning, but he is still waiting for the champion to commit to unification. Aspinall has even claimed that Jones has already retired and is planning to fight someone else, probably numbered or rated Cyril Gane. for the undisputed title if the Jones bout falls through.
This is the only sport in the world you can have somebody hold your career back.
I've been almost a year inactive with no prospects of anything. Just be ready, and we'll just let you know.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of difficult, like mentally, to.
Oh, yeah.
This is the fight against John Jones. Like, not the fight is another thing.
Yeah.
This is the tricky bit where I really have to stay switched on, stay motivated, and I'm trying my best. It's tough. As you said a minute ago, no one really knows what's going on behind the scenes apart from me.
Exactly. You're in office cooking.
I train all the time anyway. Just because I've not got a fight doesn't mean I don't train. Like, I honestly.
Jones' attitude has drawn criticism from both boxers and fans. Many think his refusal to take the Aspinall fight is financially motivated. According to individuals close to the situation, including Aspinall's training partner, Phil DeFries, Jones is said to be clinging on to the post only for the prestige and money it brings. DeFries thinks Jones has no intention of fighting the British star and is instead dragging things out to keep the belt and the financial benefits that come with it. He also claimed that if Aspinall lost to someone else, Jones would be eager to accept a fight against that opponent because it would not be Aspinall.
So we've got to speak about Tom because from my, I've been covering MMA for years. I've been watching it since before I was a teenager. I can't remember seeing anything quite like this Tom Aspinall, John Jones saga. What are you making of it?
I don't think it's going to happen, I don't think Tom wants it. I don't think John wants anything to do with it. I think John gets a lot of money for being champion. I think the sponsors are not paying him a fortune, and I think he's just dragging along, keeping the belt as long as possible because it's worth that much money to him. I don't think he's got any intention of doing the fight at all. I think he's just going to drag it out as long as he can until he gets flipped. You never know, he might come back. I mean, I'm betting he would if Tom did get beat, he would jump for joy and he'd fight the guy who beat him. But Tom's not going to get beat, and I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think so. I think it's just not happening at all. But you never know. But I think if it was going to happen, John would have said yes by now, and he's just partying in Thailand, isn't he?
Chael Sonnen, a former UFC championship contender who once challenged Jones in The Cage, has given a unique perspective on the situation. He thinks Jones does not need to fight Aspinall to safeguard his legacy. Instead, Sonnen says that Jones' swift finish of Cyril Gane at UFC 285 speaks for itself. Sonnen believes that if Aspinall and Gane eventually fight and the battle lasts more than one round, Jones will look better in comparison, even if he does not fight again.
Daniel Cormier comes out, said if John Jones leaves right now, he does not retire, he quits. If John Jones does not make that walk against Aspinall, does it call into question John's career and everything that he's achieved? Because the one great out that John has, if this little game of chicken plays out and he doesn't compete with Aspinall, yes, the media is going to be terrible, and yes, they're going to bury him. And this little thing called legacy is not going to go in your direction unless Tom and Surreal see round two. If Aspinall and Surreal fight and Aspinall beats him, but it's in the second round, John only needed a couple of minutes and never even got punched in the face. Tom Aspinall is going to have to beat 4 minutes and 31 seconds. And if he doesn't, John Jones, without lifting a finger, is going to get that legacy and get that reputation.
But not everyone buys into that story. Brian Stan, a respected former UFC fighter and military veteran who trained alongside Jones at Jackson Wink, offered a more grounded viewpoint. He believes that if he were in Jones' situation, he'd take the Aspinall fight, while Stan acknowledges that Jones is likely in a solid financial position and doesn't need the money. He also thinks that facing Aspinall wouldn't damage his legacy even if he lost, according to Stan. Jones,
your old teammate, there aren't a ton of them left, but there is one named John Jones who is still around. If you were him, what do? Do you take this last fight against Tom, or do you get out of the game with the perfect record?
I think if I'm him, I take the fight. But that's easy for me to say because I'm not. I have no idea what's going on in his personal life. And I knew him when he was very young. And one thing that always stood out to me is he was always very responsible with his money. He saved his money, which is not something a lot of fighters do. So he's probably in a really good financial position. But until I see him actually lose a fight, right? I think it's very hard to bet against him, even against somebody as young and as hungry as Tom Aspinall. But as we know in this sport, everybody has their time. But I don't think anything changes his legacy in terms of being the best, ever to do this, regardless of the outcome of that fight. But when I see those two athletes, you could absolutely see a path to victory for Jon Jones, and one where he could be standing there again, looking at all of us and laughing at any one of us who doubted him, because he's just that good. And I think the thing that makes him most unique, having fought on a couple of fight cards for him, is even guys as great as George St. Pierre, the level of anxiety GSP would get before he made that walk was insurmountable, to the point where he didn't really like it. There were times when Cowboy Cerrone would say he absolutely hated fighting, he just loved the training. When you see Jon Jones in a locker room before he's fighting, right, he looks like a kid who's getting ready to play a middle school basketball game. Like, he's genuinely excited to walk out there in the octagon and destroy the person in front of him. There's never a single doubt in his mind as to what he's going to do in there. I've never seen another fighter mentally like that. In all the times that I fought and all the times that I called fights, never seen somebody with that level of mentality and that little anxiety before they walked into the octagon.
Alexander Pantoja, the reigning flyweight champion, also weighed in on the saga, expressing disappointment over how things have unfolded, contrasted his own activity with Jones's apparent disinterest in unifying the heavyweight title. He said Jon Jones is a very special fighter, everybody loves him, but what is happening now is sad. Maybe it's time to say bye, Tom. Aspinall deserves this fight. We deserve to see this fight. It's not right that Aspinall is standing by. Nobody is going to judge Jon Jones. He doesn't need to fight Aspinall. But if he doesn't want to fight and he wants to retire, then I think he has to say bye. I hope Aspinall is still training and in the gym and he doesn't waste his time. What's made the situation even more divisive is how Jones himself has chosen to communicate or not communicate with fans and the UFC, despite having reportedly shared his plans with the promotion. According to White, there's been no real movement on the Aspinall fight, and with each passing week, more fighters and fans become vocal in their belief that Jones is either stalling for a better payday or mentally checked out of the sport altogether.
You're fighting Tom.
I was waiting for it. Where are you fighting Tom? Governor. The UFC, and Tom, we all got a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. They're one of the biggest organizations in sports, and right now Tom and I have agreed to wait for the UFC to make their announcements. So I legally can't really talk about it.
When asked about Jon Jones' present position as UFC heavyweight champion, Alex Volkanovski did not mince words. In a scathing attack, the featherweight star voiced anger with Jones' apparent lack of interest in defending his title against interim champion Tom Aspinall. Volkanovski, known for his own consistency and activity as a title holder, highlighted that owning the belt includes the need to protect it, especially when a clear challenger awaits. From his perspective, if Jones is unwilling to meet those expectations, retirement may be the only logical choice. His critique matches a rising view in the MMA community, with many questioning why Jones stays on the sidelines while Aspinall remains ready and willing.
I've always been, if you're the champion, defend your belt. It's a responsibility. You can't just, I'm going to sit out. I think you need to be reasonably active. I think you need to fight whoever's there. If you've got an interim champ, it's a no-brainer. You know what I mean? So I don't want to throw heaps of shade, but I mean, look, I know he's proved himself. Everyone's like, oh, look what he's done. It's fine. It's like, yeah, no, not really. Don't hold up the vision just because. I know your resume is incredible. What you've done is incredible. You're considered the greatest of all time. Yeah, we get that. So if you don't want to fight, just retire. You're done. Or if you want big fights, you're going to have to vacate the title. Like it's a responsibility. That's how I've always looked at being the champ. It's a responsibility.
Curtis Blades, who has experienced Aspinall's power directly, gave a straightforward appraisal of the situation. He sees little likelihood of a Jones-Aspinall battle ever taking place, one that excludes Jones altogether. While Blades would not call it a duck outright, he did criticize the quality of Jones' recent heavyweight wins, beating Cyril Gane, a fighter widely regarded as lacking in grappling ability, and an aging Stipe Miocic, who had not fought in years, did not impress him as proof that Jones had beaten the division's best in their prime.
Actually going to ask you after, but I think at this point, what's the excuse? Like at this point now,
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying, I
have no idea. I have no idea. Like, I'm not going to be disrespectful and say he's scared. He can't be scared. I have no idea.
I just don't think, and I think that I said this the first time I brought this up, I don't think the reward is worth the risk, I think, on his end. It doesn't mean you're scared, but it's like, it's like he's had this great legacy, and I think like he feels as though like him beating Tom wouldn't add that much more to his legacy. And I think he's trying to get away with the fact, well, no, this is what I'm thinking he's thinking. I'm thinking he thinks that he can convince people that beating Stipe was like more meaningful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's wrong, but you're right. He probably does think that, but if he were honest with himself, like, he hasn't beaten a real heavyweight, like a real prime heavyweight. You beat Khan, who he's got obvious holes in the grappling, and then you beat a old Stipe who was rusty and who did have you. He had you like, there were moments in that fight where Stipe, a younger Stipe, maybe takes advantage of those times he had him. I think if John were to beat Tom, we would all be like, okay, he legitimately is the GOAT. He legitimately won the heavyweight title. I think it would help him. I think it would help him more than even if he lost. Because, bro, we get it. You're old. You're not a real heavyweight. We get it. You can lose. It's okay.
From a different angle, Rashad Evans added his voice to the argument, but in a more contemplative tone, drawing on his own career to offer a psychological explanation for Jones' present actions. Evans thinks that this is not about fear or avoidance, but rather about legacy management. The emotional and mental weight of maintaining a legendary position can sway a fighter's choices in ways that outsiders may not understand. Jones, in his opinion, may be taking the time to fully examine what is at risk and how each step will influence the last chapters of his career, especially with someone like Aspinall vying for him.
All right, last thing. John Jones, Tom Aspinall, who you got?
I got John Jones. I think Tom Aspinall is a man, but I feel like, John Jones is just another level. He can do it in so many different ways with his striking, with his grappling, and I feel like, being in a situation, coming in a fight where he's kind of being pushed into this point, I feel.
Tom's a big boy.
Yeah, but I feel like with John's a big boy too, and John knows how to fight like a big boy. Right. One thing I feel like what Tom does really well is he moves so well, and I feel like that may give John a little bit of trouble, but I feel like John is smart enough to figure it out.
George St. Pierre also gave a larger view based on his experience at the highest levels of the sport, expressing his tremendous regard for John Jones and his place among MMA's all-time greats. St. Pierre acknowledged the merciless force of time, especially against an opponent like Aspinall, whose speed, power, and youth are evident assets. But he did not rule out Jones rising to the situation.
Talk about if I have to choose someone in his prime that I put in the Coliseum hand to hand, I think I would be John Jones. It's hard to deny that. However, nobody beats time, and Tom Aspinall is on a hell of a run now. So it's to see how they get a match. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. As a fan, I want to see this fight. I would like to see this fight, but I think Tom is very hungry, and it's up to John to see if he still wants to do this and if the UFC can compensate him good, because I think he deserves it. So it's going to be a hell of a...
In the realm of mixed martial arts, legacies are frequently written when warriors stand up, take risks, and leave no question. Jones has had plenty of such moments over his long career, but this one stays undone. Whether he finally agrees to meet Aspinall or not, the inquiries will never stop, and the critiques will only become louder the longer he is idle. As the UFC approaches its decision date, all eyes are on John Jones. Will he protect his heavyweight belt against the interim champion, or will the sport continue without him? Whatever happens next, it's clear that time is running out for the heavyweight division and its supporters who need answers.